everyone, and welcome to another special edition of my Become Unstoppable series. Because today I have the lovely Leann, but Leann is a client of mine. Now, Leann is going to introduce herself in a moment, and she's a wonderful human being. And she come to work with me on a one-to-one basis and is part of my Your Breakthrough group program. So, Leann, would you like to introduce yourself first of all, my lovely?
Yeah, hello. So I'm Leanne, and I met Julie at a networking group, and we just chatted, and we just clicked. I found Julie really easy to talk to. So I was, she said a few things, and I was struggling. I'd started a business, and I was struggling, and I just thought Julie's the one that can help.
Oh, bless you. And tell them a little bit about what you do.
So I'm an interior designer.
Mm.
And yeah, so my passion is for creating beautiful homes for my clients. Um, but it's getting it was being in front of people. I can talk to anybody about interior design, but getting in front of people it was a little bit more challenging for
Mm.
me, and that's what I wanted help from Julie for.
Yeah, so we started to focus on your lack of confidence, didn't we? Um, and like you say, when you're in the mode, it's like anything, isn't it? We can, when we feel like we're in a natural environment, we can be more of ourselves and we can talk about the passions that we've got. And I know you're so passionate about interior design because obviously we've had lots of conversations about it. But when you're in kind of like we call like a cold environment, and it's that confidence to actually stand up and do that 60-second pitch or talk about yourself, isn't it? That's one of the hardest things to do when you become a business owner. Now, you spent time in the corporate world like me, didn't you, before you started your own business? So what do you think made you do that? What made you want to change and do something different?
Well, I've always wanted to do interior design. And it was just years ago, I didn't know how to get into it. So I went down the corporate route because that's what I knew and that's how I could get into it. So over the years, actually, there was something missing. As much as I enjoyed my corporate world, I'm quite an organised person. Um, and after speaking to you, I found out I'm quite a control freak as well.
Yeah.
So organising people and sorting things out was great, but there was always just something that wasn't right.
Mm,
And yeah, so I left working in the corporate world when we moved further out, and the train fare was too much. So
mm,
I kind of was in between jobs, and it was always right. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and I just thought if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So
mm.
that was my reason for getting into it. Me and my husband had done up houses over the years, and everyone I just really thoroughly enjoyed. So
Mm.
that's why I thought I've just got to go for it.
Go for it, yeah. But and I totally understand that because I spent 35 years in the corporate world as well, and circumstances started that I began my journey. But when you start to become a business owner, when you haven't done it before, it does start uncovering things that you didn't even know you needed to uncover. So, like you, confidence was my issue. I didn't realize it in the corporate world until I looked back and reflected on it. But if you was to look back on your corporate life, you'd probably see the same. But because you're in that environment, you're not necessarily taking too much notice. But what it can mean is it stops you from maybe putting yourself out for that new job
Mm,
or really putting yourself forward for that promotion or really shouting from the rooftops about how good you are. Because for me, that felt icky. And it's like, oh, you're just showing off. But
yeah,
actually, the people who do that, they're the ones that are in the right because they're actually confident about who they are and about what they want to do. So they don't mind sharing. It isn't bragging. It's only us who feel that that's them bragging and showing off. So that's our issue, not theirs. So I think that's really important. But what happens is when we come out of one environment and we change, now I am speaking of myself here, but I do know that you will agree with this, but you're starting something new. So then all those fears and all those limiting beliefs, all those trapped feelings, all those emotions are all stuck in our subconscious mind. And without us realizing it, they come out and they hold us back. Now, what would you say would be some of the biggest things that have been holding you back that maybe you knew about, maybe you didn't know about?
Um, yeah, well, like I say, after our discussion, it was the fear. It was just, yeah, the fear of everything. Fear of
Mm,
success, fear of failure. Um, yeah, just fear, I suppose, really.
mm. Yeah, and fear is a good one to pick on actually, because fear is kind of at the crux of lots of things. Like anxiety is fear-based, stress, overwhelm is all fear-based, procrastination, self-sabotage, all that good stuff, right? They are fundamentally all at the crux of fear. And control's a good one as well, isn't it? Like we want to have control of everything, but we can't. The only thing we can actually control are our thoughts, right? Everything else is pretty much out of our control. And when you're a parent, that's a nightmare as well, because you want to ultimately you want the best for your kids, but you can't control them like you want to, right? Because they're their own people. And actually, you've done a good job in making them their own people. So you kind of like a backhanded compliment in a way, isn't it? Like, why don't they think like me? Well, that's because I encouraged them to be who they wanted
To
to
be
be
that,
and who,
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. But I think as we get older, we do want to kind of control more. And then maybe we've got boundaries that maybe they're taking over. And I've had conversations with you about this. I've had conversations with other people about this, that if we want to stay in control of everything, then we can't expect to be good at everything and we can't expect to be successful in everything, because if we have to do the cleaning and we have to do the washing and we have to do the shopping, and because no one can do it as good as I can, well, where's the time for you? Right. And I know that's one of the things that we focus a lot in the group program, isn't it? Like Leann works with me on a one-to-one, but also in my group program. So let's just flick over to that for a minute, Leann, and just talk about that. So when we had what we call our sales call, right? When we first met, and I showed you the options that you could go for, and you said, "Yeah, I definitely want to go one to one, but I'd also like to come and join the group program." What being in the group program, what would you say would be some of those key benefits?
yeah. So obviously, one to one, you're more relaxed and you can talk about certain things that you don't necessarily want strangers on to listen to. But being in the group, it's nice. You kind of you've got each other's back. You you're thinking these things, you're worried about these things, you're fearing these things. You think, what is wrong with me? Why am I always thinking this? But when you're in a group and someone else says, oh God, yeah, that's what I've been thinking lately, or yeah, that was me 2 weeks ago, or something like you think, God, I'm not mad, I'm not strange.
Mm.
It's actually normal to feel like this. And thank God that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm. Because what happens is sometimes someone will, like we at the beginning of it, we normally start off with a bit of grounding anyway, don't we? Because everybody's come rushing in from their day. So we just get in a nice place, and then we'll do a round of what wins or issues that everyone's got. And it is so lovely, isn't it, when someone shares and you go, oh my God, like you say, that's exactly what happened. And to have that normalized, because it is a safe environment, isn't it? And it's
Yeah,
the program is called Your Stress from Lack of Confidence to Inner Peace and Clarity. So it's really directed at people who really want to get on the ladder of learning how to start de-stressing themselves and taking time out. The whole group program is all about learning to take time out for yourself. So before we met, Leann, would you say you was very good at taking time out for yourself and looking after yourself?
nope.
And just for clarity, we're not talking about, oh, you don't get dressed and you don't shower. We're not talking about that kind of
Oh
take.
no,
That's a
no.
given, right? But
Yeah,
this is not being on that treadmill, isn't it, of running
yeah.
around. So yeah, sorry, what was you going to say?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say no, definitely not. There's always something to do. There's always something to do for the business. There's always something to do for the home. There's always something to do for the children, or something to do for the husband. And it's, well, hang on a minute. What have I done for me lately?
Mm. And the biggest, well, one of the biggest issues we attack on the group program is about being too busy, being busy, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a whole section, it's a whole side of a triangle, which is all about that, because that is what everyone says. Oh, I'm just too busy. I haven't got time. I haven't got time to eat properly. I haven't got time to take care of myself. I haven't got time to exercise. I haven't got time. I haven't got time. I haven't got time to read that book, right? And then what happens? We start to get more anxious. We get more stressed. And then we end up living with this ongoing stress, which is not good for us. And that then materializes into psychological and physical conditions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So what lessons would you say you've learned about yourself, either in the group program or working with me?
It's definitely just working through it and with yourself, realizing these traits, realizing, oh, I haven't got time. Well, think about it. You know, you've got to make time. And
Mm.
when you're sitting there, I don't know, yeah, it's just sitting down, focusing and being a bit more strict with yourself that you have got to find that time.
Mm.
And it is non-negotiable. And you can see when you don't do it,
Mm.
like you were saying, you convince yourself, oh, I haven't got the time, I haven't got the time, I'm always doing this, this, and this. You do convince yourself that you haven't got the time, but when you've got to make the time.
And when you make the time, what difference does it make to your life? What positive things have you noticed about when you do and when you don't, really?
I don't know how to word it. It's kind of like a fog lifts.
Mm.
You do start to think, oh, hang on a minute. You just feel a bit clearer, and you don't get as stressed because you think, hang on, I don't need to put myself through this. Let's take that time out. You can think clearer, um, and why not put some time in for yourself?
Mm. And like you said earlier, it's like I say to people that looking after ourselves, self-care is not an option, it is mandatory, because evidence shows us that when we don't, then like I said, the stress, the anxiety, and then the physical conditions start coming as well. And you
Mm,
might find, especially as you get older, that you seem to be visiting the doctors a lot more frequently because you've got all the stacking of all these trapped feelings and emotions, because our body creates parts of us, like
mm,
skin conditions, autoimmune diseases, arthritis, all you pretty much you name it, right? I've worked on pretty much all of those. I've done Crohn's disease. There's so many different physical conditions that actually, when we go in and find the root of where it's come from, we find the answer.
yeah.
And
I mean, I
that's
did it for
what's
years.
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. I remember corporate world for years. It was stress. You know, you don't have time for yourself because if you stop and you take 5 minutes for yourself, it's like, well, why are you doing that? What are you doing?
Mm.
So yeah, well, I've got psoriasis and I've also got vitiligo, which is the skin colouring, and they've all stemmed. I wasn't born with them, put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. And as we continue to work through your presenting issues, we will get to that, won't we? But now, in the group program and on the one-to-ones, right, I teach you tools. Now, some of that might be breathing. We've got other ones where we can challenge the thoughts and feelings, behaviors that are coming into our head. And when I created the group program, I wanted it to be full of all of these. So in the training portal, you get the video content, don't you? That you was there for some of it when we created it. But also there's the workbooks and there's actual hypnosis in there and audios in there. And there's what we call somatic tools, which are all ways to help you control your mind and your body so that you can stop. So when, like, in times that you do feel stressed, because life still happens, right?
Oh
Whether
yeah.
you've been for, but it's having the tools to deal with it, isn't it? What would you say would be some of the best tools or your favorite tool that you utilize when you need to?
Um, I think I think the meditation's been really good. Just switching off.
Mm.
Like I've never would have thought about just switching off.
Mm,
You've just always got thoughts in your head. Um, so that's been helpful. Um, the RASA rule, where when you have thoughts, you sit down and you ask yourself, what are you thinking? Why are you thinking?
mm,
Is it real what you're thinking?
mm.
Um, Anxiety is a killer. Well, literally sometimes,
It
but
is, yeah.
anxiety is a killer. And you do sit there, and you could spend, and I have done in the past, spend all day worrying about something that might not happen for, say, a year, 2 years. But
Mm,
at that moment, I'm sitting there and I'm worrying about what can happen. And we all know that so much can happen in 6 months, let alone a year and 2 years.
mm,
So it's nice to have that tool now where you sit down and you analyze it and you think, right, stop it now, forget it, because no amount of what I'm thinking now and worrying about is going to change what's going to happen in 2 years' time.
no,
It's not going to make any difference.
no.
Um, and in 2 years' time, am I always worrying about the next 2 years? So you're worried
Mm,
about the future when you're not enjoying the present. So I mean that's been quite good, but definitely the meditation where it gives you time to go off and
mm.
switch off.
Switch off, yeah. And because I kind of, you've got that video content to watch as well, you have to take time out to go and watch them, don't you?
Yeah,
Um, but everybody's at different stages when they join, aren't they? Because it's kind of like an evergreen program. So you get the training portal and all those tools, but then we do the Monday night lives. Um, I mean, at the moment we do them most Mondays, but going forward it might change. I don't know, but it's nice having that constant, isn't it, in your life that you know that you can come and you can be
mm,
in that group. But there's also the Facebook group and the WhatsApp group as well. So if anyone's got any questions or issues, they just put it on there, don't they? And people jump in and help each other. And when someone's put a win in, it's oh my God, that's amazing because you're kind of friends in there, aren't you? And it's like
yeah,
you want to see people's succeed, sorry. But also it gives you there's been times in there when someone's done something like recently Jamie won an award, didn't he? Or got nominated for an award and it was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. Everyone was like, yay. And he was like, oh, okay, so it is quite a big thing then,
yeah, yeah.
and it's sharing our successes, which most of the time we're not good at, are we?
No,
We all get
definitely not.
caught up in our own heads that no one cares, or oh, and that was me for sure. Like I would do things and I didn't really celebrate them. I do now, but I do post about stuff now, which I wouldn't have done. I'm not saying I don't necessarily feel a bit when I'm doing it, but you kind of have to put yourself out there. But I think by praising ourselves and smiling and laughing, you're getting that dopamine, that serotonin hit, and it just makes you feel better anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And watching your pals in there doing something good obviously helps all the way, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So on the whole, would you recommend people to join this group program? Yeah, and this is the crux.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. It does it makes you see things differently and you have to ask yourself questions, but on a good level.
Mm,
And it does help with you dealing with stress, with you dealing with the anxiety. Um, and you do have a support network.
mm,
Not saying that your family might not, but it's nice to have somebody else
mm,
shouting in your corner, you know,
yeah. And
ginning you
because
up.
you're all kind of like-minded people in the sense that I mean we've got men in there, we've got women in there, we've got different ages, haven't we? We've got a right lovely mixed bag actually. Um, but ultimately you all went there for the same reason.
Mm, yeah,
It's because you wanted to get on that ladder of understanding the power of the mind, understanding how some things work. So you get all that conscious coaching, but then you also get the deep dive subconscious changes as well with the hypnosis, which I don't believe a lot of programs would do that because it's
mm,
all very well knowing this stuff. But if your subconscious mind doesn't agree with it, then the subconscious is always going to win.
yeah,
So the group program is a good starting point to get people on that ladder, isn't it? Of starting just to really understand about how the mind works and about the power of the imagination and how it impacts your body, and how your mind and body, your thoughts and feelings are all totally connected. And for me, that when I first started on that, I didn't get that. I didn't understand that, the whole mind body connection. Was that something that you were kind of aware of in the beginning?
Oh no, definitely not. No, you just, yeah, you just get on with it. So it's certainly been a learning curve as well.
Yeah, that a thought creates a physical reaction in your body, right? So
Yeah,
every time you're doing a negative thought, it's sending that negative energy around your body, and then it's like, oh, okay, that's negative, and then you're attracting more negativity. So it's the
yeah.
law of attraction there, isn't it? Like if you're putting out a positive vibe, then you'll attract more positivity. But if you put that negative one out, then obviously by
Well, yeah, you
default,
just,
you're going to get the negative stuff.
yeah.
So let's just quickly touch on one-to-ones. Now, obviously, I'm not expecting you to divulge any deep, dark secrets that we come up with, but the group program gives you a level of understanding and you can do some work. But if you really want to expedite your change and you really want to get to the root quicker, then one-to-one's the way to go, isn't it? So we've only done one so far, but we had phenomenal like results working on your confidence, right? Because we saw the way you changed the way you approached your work and the way you approached speaking and things like that and doing videos. You weren't really doing videos and that before. But what would you say was your biggest issue before versus now? What couldn't you do before that you can do now?
I think it's, well, yeah, like you say, you touched on it, it's the videos and getting in front of the camera. Um, wouldn't want anyone to see. So just having that little bit of confidence and obviously networking, I go networking quite a bit, and I had this just big fear of standing up in front of a group of people.
Hmm.
It hasn't gone, but I've eased it and I can control it. Um, so I think, yeah, I think that's come from it. But it's just the one-to-one. It's nice to have the group where you can all chat about different things and find out that you're not some alien, weird and wonderful. Um, but it's nice to have the one-to-one where you can focus on you. And it did, well, it brought up things that I didn't think
Hmm.
I knew happened, but I didn't think had made any impact on my life at all.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was quite surprising. And then dealing with that on
Yeah,
a,
because what it does, it brings up trapped feelings, emotions, and beliefs that you don't even realize you've got trapped, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
but because they're there, they're still holding you back.
mm,
And I always use the analogy of an onion, don't I? That the work that we've done so far, we peeled away some layers, and you're sitting with those layers now. And then you go again, and then you peel away a few more layers and get to something else. But you don't know what that something else is until you've done that first stage. Like some people just do one session, deep dive session, and then they go away living happily ever after. I've got other clients who just know, no, I want to go more. I want to go more. I want to go more because now I've uncovered this and now I've uncovered that, and they want to keep going. So it's a personal journey, isn't it?
yeah,
It's not one session will fix your whole life, but it might be enough for you at that time.
yeah,
Um, but the important thing to understand is that we don't talk about it. We go and ask your subconscious, don't we? How did
mm.
you find that whole deep, as we call it, the deep dive, the hypnosis session? How did you find that? Had you ever done hypnosis before?
No, never done it before. I did think oh, yeah, I can't switch off enough to be hypnotized. No, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to relax enough in this session. It's going to be a
Not going
waste
to
of
work.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not going to work. You can't get in there. Um, so yeah, I was quite surprised at that.
But we did get in there, didn't we?
We did.
And then you kind of get surprised about what comes out, don't you? That I mean, some things will be memories that you do know about,
Mm,
but sometimes it was things that you didn't even know was an issue.
yeah,
But when it is a memory that you know about, what you probably wouldn't have done before is untangling the feelings, emotions, and beliefs that are around that event. And that's what we do in the sessions. We don't wipe your mind of the memory, but we change the meaning to it. So your body would have created a meaning to that event. So we change all that. and we eliminate that fear, well, not eliminate the fear, but we take away the emotions and that were attached to it. I mean, it might have been an emotion of fear, so there, yeah, therefore we would get rid of it, or we give it a new role, don't we?
Mm.
Sometimes we give things new roles, but ultimately it's uncovering the root of what's causing, in your case, in that instance, it was confidence, getting to the root cause of why you were lacking in confidence. And then you come up with the scenes, we come up with the beliefs, we come up with the feelings and emotions, and we deal with them there and then in the session. And then you all get a bespoke recording. How did you find your bespoke recording?
I really enjoyed it actually. It made me, shouldn't have done, but it did make me giggle at first, a couple of things, because of what I'd said in our one-to-one. And you brought it back up, and so it did make me giggle. But it's nice to listen back to it, and I do still obviously sit and I listen to it. Again, it's that switching off and
Mm,
concentrating on me, but it's good to hear,
mm.
and it just keeps it fresh, if you like.
Yeah, and sometimes just having it a little boost every now and
Mm,
again just builds that confidence again, doesn't it? And that's the thing. So what basically we do is, in a deep dive session, I'll use my little analogy, right? You imagine that you're like a shrub in a garden, say, but you've got loads of weeds hanging around you. So when we talk about issues, you can definitely trim back the weeds, but the root's still there, right? So it carries on growing. And it might manifest in something else, or it might carry on and just, oh, I thought I resolved that anxiety, but now it's come back, right? Well, that's because it wasn't dealt with properly. So what we do in the session is we get the shovel and we're actually digging to the root of whatever it is, the anxiety, confidence, whatever. We're going to throw that root away. But obviously it's left a bit of a gaping hole. So we don't really want to do that. So what we want to do is fill that hole up with really good stuff, really positive stuff. So that's what the recording is. It's like sprinkle some magic dust, some seed. And because you're listening to that recording every single day for at least 3 weeks afterwards, we're building really strong foundations. So there's different elements that go into that. Some of it we would have discussed in previously, wouldn't we, about imagine what would your life be like? What do you want to be doing if you wasn't confident? And we put that in there because that's all about being visual and looking. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what is real and what's imagined, right? So you imagine what your life will be look like, and because you're in it and you're seeing it, breathing it, smelling it, it feels reality. But we also fill it up with really wonderful, powerful, positive beliefs, don't we? So say for example, your root belief was I'm not good enough. In the recording, it's going, oh, I'm amazing, I'm phenomenal, I'm super, I'm brilliant. And because your mind learns by repetition, it will just know that, right?
yeah,
So the important thing is, isn't it? A belief is just something that you believe. So if you believe you're fat and ugly, well, let's believe you're beautiful and slim, right?
yeah,
What's the difference? It's
yeah,
just something we believe. So we're switching it to a positive. And that's what it's all about. And then you get that, you just become more confident, don't you? And confidence is a funny one to actually measure, as opposed to something like, say you said, oh, I'm really anxious and I can't walk out the front door. Well, obviously, if you walked out the front door after the session, you're like, oh my God, it worked. But confidence is a bit of a trickier one, isn't it? And
yeah.
I get this all the time. And I know you was definitely like this, yeah, I don't think I've changed much. But because we do some prep work before, we can measure where you were before.
Mm.
And that's when you go, oh yeah, I forgot I said that. Oh, oh yeah. And it's true, isn't it?
It is.
Because you're just who you are now.
Mm.
Um, I'll shut
Yeah.
up and let you speak. I've just spoken for a very long time there. But because I get so passionate about it, that's what happens. And I have to pull my neck in a little bit. So yeah. So overall, would you say that you feel in a different place to where you were before?
Yeah, yeah. I think a little bit more work, but definitely, I'm
Mm.
definitely on that ladder up.
Mm.
And if I hadn't, I would be stuck, obviously, where if I hadn't done anything with you, I'd be
Mm.
stuck, probably wouldn't be where I am today. Not,
Mm.
I don't mean as in I wouldn't be alive, but I just wouldn't be in a position where I am today. And you look back and I have come a long way.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yes, it's certainly helped me and it will definitely help going forward. You have got to keep, I think. keep working at it because life will throw you curveballs.
Mm,
And sometimes they do knock you back.
they
So
do.
having that recording and then also having the ongoing group support and everything else, um, it keeps you going.
Mm. Yeah, and having that accountability helps as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you go like a couple of weeks and you haven't been, it's like I go, "Who's coming tonight?" And it's like, "Oh, bugger, I haven't been for a bit. Better go." Like but it does, it keeps you on track, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
and it keeps you accountable. It's a lovely community, a great group of people, and there's all that content in there that will really generally help you. But also, if people want to work with me on a one-to-one basis, that's great as well. And that just expedites what we're doing, and we're going bespoke, totally
Yeah.
bespoke then, aren't we? Whereas the
Yeah.
group program is a little bit more generic, but when you do the deep dive hypnosis, you're going off in your own world anyway. So it's fixing whatever it needs to fix, isn't it? But yeah. So Leann, it's been a pleasure having you as a client, and I know we're going to do some more work in the future as well, so that we can get you where you really, really want to be. And that is being super successful at Brooklyn Interiors with clients in abundance, but the ideal clients.
Yep.
But also living your life happiness, getting that fun in there and it, and just enjoying life really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what,
Definitely. No, thank you.
no, thank you. And I just realised as we got right to the end of this interview, I didn't ask you what does being unstoppable mean to you. But I also didn't prime her beforehand either. So if I was to say to you, Leann, what would you say being unstoppable means to you? What would you say?
Um, well, for me, obviously, because my main issue is confidence, but just being able to do just do whatever.
Mm,
Like you say, I could live my life, not worry, and confident knowing that what I'm doing is right. And just yeah, building my business, being with family.
mm,
Um, yeah, nothing holding me back. Not letting those negative thoughts hold me back. Should have
no.
said that at the beginning rather than the long way round. But there you go. I get there in the end.
Normally, when I start the interview, I say to people, don't forget, I'm going to ask you that question. And I didn't think about it
No.
until later. But I thought, oh well, I'm sure she'll cope. Because she's so confident now. Nothing
I
will
just
phase
waffle.
her. But on a serious note, darling, thank you so much for doing this testimonial because I know it is very personal and not everybody is willing to do it. And I appreciate you taking the time out to do this and sharing your story. So thank you so very much. Um,
No,
and
thank you.
and what we will do is we'll put your details here as well, and I'll tag you in on the socials afterwards so that if anyone needs an interior designer, this is your lady. She's amazing. And as you can tell, as a person, she is phenomenal. She is totally unstoppable. So get to her now before she's so successful. You want, her prices will just go. So thank you so very much, darling, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time on my Unstoppable series. Take care.